Okay. See, we got people here. Are we back? And we're back, straight back. Are we back? Tell me that you love me. I don't know if I bit more than I wanted to. This is kind of long. Let me see. 5 minutes. Ooh. Okay. So maybe about 2 hours, 20 minutes. They go away for a long time and then they come back for like a brief second. All right. Let's get it doing. How you guys doing? Welcome. So this is the closing arguments. This happened today, a couple hours ago. And Kaitlin Armstrong was found guilty, which is not a surprise. Guilty of killing Mo Wilson, I believe. And this was somebody that was seeing the guy that she was with on and off, Kaitlin, Scorned lover. But Mo didn't really know about this chick. Like, she found out, I think, and started questioning, like, hey, what's going on? This guy kept lying. This guy's name is Colin Strickland. The guy seems like a douchebag to me. There was previous video that he kind of like hit some of the reporters or like pushed into them or stepped on their toe. A little weirdo snob. But the redeeming quality about him, as I saw this clip the other day and I thought all about the pet lovers, animal lovers. And I figured this gives him a pass. Check this out. He got a puppy! It's okay now. Oh! All right, we'll accept him. Like a whole entourage and shit. But anyway, yeah, let's just check this out. See how this closing thing is. I mean, we already know how it ends, I guess, but I was just kind of curious. I don't know if it was fiery because the opening statements were a little bit fiery. I was wondering if this guy's got into it or it's Kaitlin. I'm innocent.
Good morning, my colleagues. Gene here and Guillermo. I would like to thank you for your time and for your attention. And I noticed a lot of you guys were taking notes, and I appreciate that. I know it's been a long process, but I appreciate you guys hanging in there with us. But I remember I told you in the opening statement, we'd be presenting 40 witnesses to you, and I think we had about 38. And in the opening statement, I gave you an outline of where I was going. And that's what I want to talk about right here. Now, in the opening statement, the defense called the defendant, Kaitlin Armstrong, a shrinking violet. It's not me. I don't call names. They call her a shrinking violet.
A shrinking violet.
Now, paragraph 12 in your charge talks about all the evidence comes from here. This is your shrinking violet. This is what the evidence showed you who she really is. January 12th, 4 months before Mo Wilson was killed and taken from us. Now, I also told you in opening statements.
I posted this on Twitter. This is actually like Ring doorbell that captured. I don't want to do too much talking because I want to get through the 2 hours or whatever. But they capture audio of Kaitlin shooting Mo and Mo screaming, I think.
And I used my hands. That the last thing that Mo Wilson did on this earth on May 11th, 2022 at 9:15 p.m. was scream in terror.
Really loud too. Trigger warning, I guess, for the people that you know it's coming. Those 3 shots.
And that evidence came from Mr. Donald's audio from his camera, G4 camera, from this witness stand.
Oh, G4 camera.
I was true to my word. I brought that evidence to you. And I also told you on that tape, heard 2 shots. And there was a 4 or 5 second pause. I told you in opening, and I presented it to you pursuant to paragraph 12, evidence from the witness stand, that she stood over her. This young lady over here, the defendant, Kaitlin Armstrong, I told her she stood over her after she shot her in the head twice and put another bullet right in her heart. Yeah. You heard Dr. DeRusi, the ME. That third bullet was right in her heart. Yeah. And she also testified that because of the exit wound, she was up against something. I submit to you, she was up against the floor. 2 to the head, and she was laying on the floor, probably already dead. And for good measure, the defendant walked up to her and put another bullet right in her heart. And I also told you that 19 days before this trial, she escaped from the sheriff's department. Now, I'm going to tell you the irony of this. We picked this jury on October 30th. We started our evidence on November the 1st, Dia de las Muertas, the Day of the Dead, November the 1st. It's a day that the Mexican-American culture celebrate those who have gone before them. We started this evidence on the Day of the Dead. So you see from this video here, you see her?
Running. That guard got probably laid off. I don't know.
She's not just running from the sheriff's department. No, sir. That's 19 days before this trial. She's running from you and you and you and you and you and you and you, and she's running from all of you on the back row because you are a jury of her peers. Everybody deserves their day in court, and she got hers. And you can see from this video, she didn't want to face you. Now, the offense charge in this case is murder. We're going to go over this really quick because it's in your charge. Murder. These are the elements that we have to prove to you. That the defendant intentionally or knowingly caused the death of an individual or intends to cause serious bodily injury and commits an act clearly dangerous to human life that causes the death of an individual. 2 ways to commit it. A person's intentionally or knowingly cause the death of an individual. Intentionally. It gives you a definition. A person acts intentionally or with intent with respect to a result of her conduct when it is her conscious objective to cause the result. Or you can go on the second part, which is knowingly. A person acts knowingly or with knowledge with respect to a result of her conduct when she is aware that her conduct is reasonably certain to cause the result. It even defines an individual. Individual means a human being who is alive. It defines serious bodily injury. Bodily injury that causes a substantial risk of death or that causes death, serious permanent disfigurement, or protracted loss. And it even defines a firearm. A firearm means any device designed, made, or adapted to expel a projectile through a barrel by using the energy generated by an explosion or burning substance or any device readily convertible to that use. Now, unanimity. What that means is this. You need to be unanimous that the defendant committed murder. You do not need to be unanimous on what theory you use if, for some reason, you don't have the same theory. Some can believe that it was intentional. Some can believe that it's knowingly, and some can believe that she just committed an act clearly dangerous to human life. As long as you all believe that the defendant on May 11th caused the death of Anna Mariah Wilson. So, this is what the state has to prove right here. On or about May 11th. I think we've got a lot of evidence about what day it happened. In Travis County, Texas. We've talked about from through the detective that this happened in Travis County. That the defendant, Kaitlin Armstrong, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Anna Mariah Wilson or intended to cause serious bodily injury and committed an act clearly dangerous to human life that caused the death of Anna Mariah Wilson with the firearm. I believe the state has met that burden. I think we've proved all them elements, and I believe we have proved them beyond a reasonable doubt. So, if you remember, doing an opening statement, the defense showed you a little mountain we had to climb. I'll submit to you that pursuant to paragraph 12, through those 40 witnesses, we climbed this mountain. Never seen so much evidence in my life against one person. Now, the purpose of this is to relate to Steve Aston, the ballistics tool mark expert, who, by the way, testified that he's never had issue with proficiency tests. And they asked him 3 different times. So you never made a mistake? No. So you never made a mistake? No. So you never made a mistake? No. Now, if you allege that he made a mistake, guess what? Pursuant to paragraph 12, no evidence that he made a mistake came from that witness chair. In fact, you heard 3 hours of testimony from Mr. Tobin. And at the end of 3.5 hours, he said, and I quote from Mr. Gonzalez, "No, I'm not here to contest his findings. That's 4 hours of our life we'll never get back." I said, not my words. It may be funny, but those are his words. I'm not here to contest his finding or to say that it's not a match. Now, they asked Steve Aston several times, why did you not exclude all other guns in the world? No one else in the world had a 6-hour P365 and left their DNA at the scene. Nobody else in the world fit that description.
I like how they put the globe just rotating and shit.
No one else in the world was angry that their boyfriend was out with Mo Wilson. Just her.
Mm-hmm.
No one else in the world had their Jeep circling 1708B Maple for an hour before you heard that 915 shot. No one else in the world matched that description. That's what you do when you got nothing. You pick on the detective and you talk to him about where you didn't look. Not the mountain of evidence that we have. You try to distract you from that. And finally, no one else in the world left the scene of the murder in Kaitlin Armstrong's Jeep that was parked in that alley from 8:40 p.m., 2 minutes after the murder. We don't need no one else in the world to make these facts that came from that chair true. These are not my words. These are facts that came from the witness chair. No one else in the world fits this criteria. So that, did you check every gun in the world? That's called a rabbit hole they want you to go down. Only Kaitlin Armstrong, the defendant, fits these facts that was presented to you through that witness chair. Now, let's talk about her best friends, one of them. One of them says she's a friend, one of them says she's a best friend. She told Jacqueline Chastain about the gun a month after it was purchased. Nicole Mertz said, I've never seen her that upset before, and that's why I remember. Never seen her that upset before. These are her friends. We called them, but they were her friends. You heard them. Don't let anybody recharacterize a relationship. Those two ladies got on the stands and said, we are her friends, and one of them said, she's my best friend. And we know Kaitlin called Mo Wilson to confront her about Kate. We know that from the cell phone records. Now, we don't know exactly what she said, so I'm not going to put that out there. But we know she called her. And we know Colin texted her and said, WTF. And we all know what that means. And what's even more chilling is that when the defendant's two best friends heard that Mo Wilson was dead, they called the police unsolicited. And they said, you better check her out. You better look at her. Now, they both testified that, no, I didn't take that serious in January. But then when they backed up and put it together about how angry she was, about her shaking to the point where she has never seen that anger before. If anybody knows you, your best friend knows you. Now, they may get up and say he's not our best friend. But guess what? Did anybody sit right here and contradict Chastain and Mertz's testimony that they were her friend and her best friend? No. So that's the evidence that you have to work with. Her best friend called the police on her. Now let's talk about these surveillance videos. You heard a lot of talk about the surveillance videos didn't cover the stairs to Cash's house. No. Generally, people have surveillance cameras to protect their own property. The lady in the alley, she had a camera in the front and the back of her house. Her camera wasn't to figure out who might go up Cash's stairs and kill her best friend, Mo Wilson. Her camera was for her own protection. It was on 18th Street, north. And to the east, on Maple, there was a couple of cameras. And those cameras point to the front of those people's house and their porches for their protection, not in the alley. Once again, they want you to look somewhere where the evidence is not. And when she left, you didn't see the Jeep. The reason you didn't see the Jeep is she left south in the alley. The camera was north and east. Remember further north, the camera caught the motorcycle going by? There was no camera. Now, I'm not suggesting that she knew that at all. I don't believe she did. Because if she did, I don't believe she'd been circling in that Jeep that whole time. But no, a camera didn't catch her leaving. The GPS, that Jeep put her there. Now, let's talk about this black Jeep. Remember initially when the 3 or 4 video people came up here? And I want you to split your mind down the middle. On the left side, all this noise I'm talking up here, they're going to be talking. On the right side, I want you to think about section 12 of your charge and what came from this witness statement. Now, initially, when those video people came about, you remember the cross-examination? Do you know how many black Jeeps in Austin? Do you know how many black Jeeps in the neighborhood? How do you know it's that black Jeep? How do you know it's a Jeep? Aren't there a lot of black SUVs? Well, the minute Daniel Portnoy comes up and takes that GPS out of her Jeep, and we see her at CarMax in her Jeep, now they switch gears to how do you know she was driving her Jeep? You see the rabbit holes they're gonna try to send you down? First, it wasn't her Jeep. Then we got proof that it was her Jeep.
I want to hear the
And now she wasn't driving the Jeep.
I want the fences part to come
Now, I want you to look at your picture on the screen and think about one thing.
Take the switch. I think.
At 9:17, track 100 of that Jeep, 2 minutes after that murder, just a few feet down that alley. Track 100 starts at 9:17. Now, this is not a true picture of 9:55 p.m. that night. I just wanted to show you this because you see Colin Strickland in that garage right there? That's exactly where he said he was at 9:55 p.m. or somewhere around that time when Kaitlin Armstrong, the defendant, drove up from murdering Mo Wilson in that black Jeep. The same black Jeep that from our first 10 witnesses wasn't a black Jeep, wasn't her Jeep. And then the second set of witnesses, she wasn't in the Jeep. That same black Jeep that she was not in, drove up. And like Colin testified, he was in the driveway with the garage up when she showed up at 9:55. That takes away all these phantom people. You remember all that talk about how many people went to the house for this, that, and the other? Rabbit holes. Go back to section 12 in this chair. Did you give any testimony that anybody was driving that black Jeep, her black Jeep, with her phone? Now, Ms. Mazak, who did a wonderful job, all those text messages, all those things, they came back and made her say, Kaitlin's phone, not Kaitlin with her phone. To imply that someone may have stolen her Jeep, stolen her phone, and the geolocation put them in the same place. So whoever stole her Jeep and stole her phone, they was running side by side. But check this out. Whoever stole her phone and was in her Jeep sent somebody a text message with her home address from that phone that they stole that was not in her possession, if you believe that. And that same person who had Kaitlin Armstrong, the defendant's phone, sent Colin Strickland a text message about a lawsuit that they had going on with some real estate issues. So if she didn't have her phone, whoever stole her Jeep and her phone was also interested in her lawsuit and where she lived, if you believe that. And there's no evidence to suggest that it was anybody other than her. And finally, that same phone says she had to run errands earlier, and she texted Colin saying Feeny, which I think means finished. So whoever had her phone, if it wasn't her, they were finished running their errands just like she was.
That's a new one. I never heard that before. Feeny.
See, the more I talk, the more ridiculous it gets. That it wasn't her with that Jeep and that phone. Now, they talked about Pam Mazak, that GPS, they asked her 3 or 4 times, is GPS more accurate than CDR data? She said yes. Now, remember when Portnoy was there, they kept talking about how GPS wasn't that accurate. 2 days later, Mazak get there. Now, GPS is more accurate than CDR, isn't it? We agree, it's accurate, because it puts her Jeep at the scene, puts it at 8:40, has it leaving about 9:17, and has it driving up at her home at 9:50. Her Jeep, her GPS, pulled out of her car at CarMax. And the DNA on the bike puts her at the scene. Proof that Kaitlin was there when Mo Wilson was shot. Gunshots at 9:15. Jeep parked in the alley, leaves after the gunshots. Kaitlin's DNA on the bike. Shell casings that matched the gun. And like Detective Ramirez said, it was personal. So she shot her in the heart after she's all on the ground based on the exit of that bullet. Now, when the defense expert got up there, he said 3 times, and I'm like, whoa. DNA tells us who was there. I agree. That's their expert, not ours. Our expert was more cautious talking about the ratio. He said DNA tells us who was there. And I agree. She was there. I'll go to this evidence real quickly. The video evidence shows us that Kaitlin was circling 1708 maybe about an hour. Shows us her Jeep in the alley 1 minute before Mo unlocked the door. Cell phone corroborates the GPS. Has all those personal messages. DNA evidence, Dr. Caliphate talks about tertiary and quaternary or whatever that 4th level is transfer, never seen it. And the evidence from Samantha Perkins that is 224 billion times more likely that the DNA included Kaitlin Armstrong as opposed to somebody else. Now, you've heard a lot of testimony about that third profile. Could have been anybody. Could have been a mechanic. Could have been an airport person. It could have been anybody's DNA. So don't let them go down that rabbit hole, and that's the real killer, some kind of grassy knoll theory, because you know what that doesn't explain? That third person DNA? It doesn't explain Kaitlin Armstrong's DNA on that bike. That's what it doesn't, unless she took somebody with her. So don't go down the rabbit hole, because there's no evidence that any third person did that. And look at all the other evidence and just use your common sense. Steve Aston, very confident that Kaitlin Armstrong 6-hour P365 is the gun that killed Mo Wilson. And the GPS has her circling for an hour before, tracks her the whole time. Undisputed from the witness stand. I talked about this. You didn't see her exit route because she went a different way than where the cameras was.
Mo.
Mid-South.
You feeling motivated, Red? Good.
This was a race that she had just won, one of her recent races.
Her bear, how's the baby?
Mo Wilson is a 25-year-old prodigy. Everybody in the cycling community that testified kind of shook their head about how good she was, and she was new at it. A prodigy.
Jealous. Kaitlin, jealous.
Taken
snob
from Matt and Mr. and Miss Wilson at the age of 25. Kaitlin Cash over there on the front row. When I talked to her, call me Cash. Kaitlin killed my friend. That's why we call her Cash. Kaitlin with a C. Poor thing don't even like her own name anymore. She pumped her friend's heart over 100 times. You heard it on the 911 call. For 10 minutes until the first responders got there. Not knowing she'd probably been dead for 45 minutes. Then she runs to Costa Rica, had plastic surgery, on the beach teaching yoga while the Wilsons are trying to pick up the pieces.
Committed to the yoga, man. Inner peace, inner zen.
The state has met its burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. I think we climbed past that mountain and climbed Mount Everest. Overwhelming.
A murderer yoga instructor.
If I can get up here and send you down a bunch of rabbit holes. I ask you to do me one favor. The tools of a prodigy. She's about to set the world on fire. So don't do me a favor. Do Mo Wilson a favor. And I got one last thing to say to you. Get your notepad. Write a line down the middle of it. If you don't have a notepad, use a notepad in your brain. And when they get up here, do something for me, but do it for Mo. When they say something and singing out a rabbit hole, write it on the left side. If it's proven from the evidence chair, pursuant to paragraph 12 of your charge, write it on the right side of your paper. And we've been here a long time, but we ain't got to stay much longer, because when you get to the back, I submit you that when you separate the left side of the paper from the right side of the paper, it's going to be blank. And we can get out here pretty quickly and find her guilty of shooting Mo Wilson in the heart and in the head and taking away this prodigy at the age of 25. Don't think about closure. Don't think about none of that. Don't think about the community. That's not your burden. Your burden is to follow the law. I only ask you to do one thing. Justice for Mo Wilson. The state has met its burden. I'm asking you to find her guilty. And don't let her run like she'll have to do 19 days before this trial. Thank you.
Okay. See what the defense has. What you got up your sleeve? Gotta pull something out. Gotta pull a rabbit out. Ricky Piglet, all right.
The state bears the burden of proof, and so the district attorney speaks first in opening and closing argument, and then they speak last. My name is Mr. Kofer. It's been a privilege to represent Kaitlin Armstrong. I'll visit with you a little bit, and then my colleague, Mr. Purrier, will visit with you. When we sit down, Mr. Gonzalez will have the opportunity to speak with you. 1 year, 4 months, and 12 days. That is how long Kaitlin Armstrong has asserted her innocence. And from day one, she asked for this trial. She asked for you to hear this case. You have all done extraordinary work. This is a difficult case. It is an emotional case. It could appear to be an easy case. For those 1 year, 4 months, and 12 days, Kaitlin Armstrong has been trapped in a nightmare of circumstantial evidence. How do you go about disproving a negative? The government has presented you the government's case to meet the government's burden. There is a lot of sizzle. There's not much stake. It's a case based on assumptions, it's based on confirmation bias, and a lack of direct evidence. Let us talk about the case against Kaitlin Armstrong. It starts with jealousy. Jealousy is suspicion of someone's unfaithfulness in a relationship. And jealousy is a type of insecurity. We know that Colin Strickland fostered insecurity, and he has become the new poster child for Peter Pan syndrome in Austin, Texas. So what is the evidence that Kaitlin Armstrong is a jealous psycho? Colin was not honest with Kaitlin about his special friend in Colorado. And Kaitlin allegedly sent him a photograph of that friend. The implication being, number one, perhaps she had been looking at his phone, and number two, that she's crazy and jealous because when he was sneaking off to Colorado to meet up with the person sending him inappropriate photographs, she had the temerity to not like it. Kaitlin called Mariah Wilson once in October 2021. The text messages introduced into evidence show you that she had immediately before been in conversation through those messages with Colin about the location of her helmet. Probably probably it wasn't a phone call about the helmet. Let's be real. Probably it was a phone call, something to the extent of, by the by, Colin Strickland is a little bit of an ass, and I live with him. Is that so unreasonable? Is that insane? Kaitlin also had the chutzpah to send Colin a snarky text message when there was an Instagram story of Colin in a photograph with Mariah Wilson, undisputed. Kaitlin texted, "Give my regards to Mo." That doesn't make a murderer. It's possible that Kaitlin viewed Colin's text messages, undoubtedly. Just as Colin testified from the witness stand that Colin had done the exact same thing in past relationships. You 14, and the 12 of you who will decide this case, are a relatively unique species in Travis County. You are a diverse jury. You are a diverse jury of age, of gender, of experiences, and of race. That is uncommon in this county. I want you to bring that diversity of life experience into your deliberations. I want you to look out at this assembled audience, and I want you to wonder, because generations are different. This morning, someone advised me of a new app the kids are on, Flip. Hadn't heard of it until this morning. Young people communicate a little bit differently.
Flip?
But I would bet you every penny that I am worth that at least one of you has looked at your partner's text messages at some point.
No.
And I would bet you everything that I'm worth, and him, that that's true of a number of the people that are in this audience. And the younger they are, the more common it is. Because jealousy is a fundamentally human emotion. Because it is about lack of trust in a relationship. But we know what Mr. Strickland shared with us about Kaitlin Armstrong. That in October of 2021, when Colin Strickland was having his short relationship with Mariah Wilson, that Kaitlin Armstrong was on dating apps. That Kaitlin Armstrong was dating other people. We know that Colin Strickland told you that at the cyclocross events in Bentonville, Arkansas, in January of 2022, that Kaitlin didn't appear to him jealous in any way. Nothing remarkable about her behavior to him. And in fact, we know that he shared that, yes, he'd had a long-standing sexual relationship with professional cyclist and woman, Amity Rockwell. And that Kaitlin was friends with Amity Rockwell.
Who had a relationship with who?
Sexual relation. In fact, we know that he shared that, yes, he'd had a long-standing sexual relationship with professional cyclist and woman, Amity Rockwell.
Oh, so he was messing around with somebody else too? Damn. Homeboy slinging.
And that Kaitlin was friends with Amity Rockwell. That Kaitlin had never expressed anything approaching jealousy or negative emotions about Amity Rockwell. Mariah Wilson was not the first cycling woman in Colin's life. Colin hid his relationship with Mariah Wilson into 2022. He did that because he didn't want to be honest about it. He doesn't like emotions. He likes what he wants and what's important to him. He was breadcrumbing, and I think you know what that is. He was leaving his options open. He just didn't want to get caught. He didn't lie because Kaitlin was a jealous psycho killer. He lied because that's how he approaches life. That's how he approaches women. He's a professional cyclist and an amateur liar.
Oh.
Well, what did Colin Strickland?
I was asked under the bus. No wonder he was so. Colin guy was such a little, the way he was when he was walking out of the shit. He's pushing people, shoving people, stepping on reporters' feet and stuff. No wonder he was acting how he was acting. His ass got called out. I guess it was on public display, even though we didn't get to watch it. Public display for people to see his real nature, character.
say
Snobby.
about Kaitlin, though. He said the relationship was not volatile. Kaitlin was not a particularly jealous girlfriend. He shared he'd had girlfriends in the past before Kaitlin, and that Kaitlin was not jealous like those other past girlfriends.
So I should go.
Who brought up jealousy first? Austin Police Department Detective Richard Spittler. On May 12th, mere 12 hours after the murder of Mariah Wilson, when Detective Spittler interviewed Colin Strickland, who first said that J word, Richard Spittler, because it was a great theory. And what a convenient narrative. What a wonderful and easy way to paint a woman and to tell a story. The woman scorned. Whether the facts met the narrative or not, it's a great story. The truth of the matter is that Kaitlin's emotions and her actions were normal and routine and human. But she had to be portrayed as a jealous psycho to create the motive. The problem, however, in Colin and Kaitlin's relationship was not Mariah Wilson. The problem was always Colin Strickland. However, Colin's behavior does not make sense. Colin changed Mariah Wilson's name in his phone on May 11th. Colin deleted his text exchange with Mariah Wilson on May 11th. What was different about May 11th? Why did he do that on May 11th? He felt he needed an alibi. Why that day? Jealousy. But what about the black Jeep? You know exactly where and exactly when that Jeep traveled. There is not a doubt that Kaitlin's cell phone was on her person between about 5:30 p.m. and at least 7:30 p.m. on May 11th. There's no dispute whatsoever as to that. And there is no doubt of any type that Kaitlin's cell phone was in the vicinity of the black Jeep. Was Kaitlin in the black Jeep? Who had access to the black Jeep? Who had access to the key fob to the black Jeep? Who had access to the key bowl containing that fob that drives the black Jeep? Who previously owned a black SUV? Pam Mazak presented you a compelling PowerPoint. Animation, details. PowerPoint presentations in criminal cases like this are a lot like swimsuits. What they reveal is interesting. What they hide is what's essential. It's real easy to look at the animation that Pam Mazak provided you and see ... call detail record timestamp ... And then to see infotainment track log ... And if you don't review the data, if you take it on the word of a PowerPoint animation, it's really easy to look at it and go, the phone was in the car and it was riding together. There is a very, very good reason that you were shown a PowerPoint and that you were not presented the data. When you return to the room back there to deliberate, ask for the PowerPoint, ask for the actual data. The problem isn't the data in your heads. The problem is the presentation of it. Because what you'll see, if you actually look at the data, is that you were left with an impression that is not true. Look at the timestamp. on the call detail records compared to the infotainment. And you're going to see a lag. And sometimes you'll see an advancement. And what you'll see is that while it is undisputed that the phone was in the vicinity of the black Jeep, you'll see that there is zero conclusive evidence that phone actually was in the black Jeep. What you will see, though, is some really peculiar movement of the black Jeep. Peculiar movement that Pam Mazak completely skipped over. When that vehicle is heading northbound on Lamar and stops near an area called Spa 7, where maybe somebody had an appointment, or maybe not, you're going to see some very strange movement of the data within a parking garage.
What I'm a little confused about is there's this reporter that he's been posting all the stuff that's going on with this case, the trial. 59 seconds ago, he said both state and defense have rested and closed their cases. Jury will begin deliberating about sentence. Oh, so the jury is doing sentencing. So that's going to be tomorrow, 9 a.m. Central Time. So 10 a.m. Eastern. Oh. Okay. I don't know if they're showing that or not. I forgot. I know they're doing opening, closing, maybe the verdict, or is it sentencing? I don't know.
And you might wonder why that car may have gone up and down inside a parking garage, and why when the car is moving inside a parking garage, the phone is not in that parking garage. The phone is inside of a building. What about all those other vehicles? What about Colin's mom's car? What about the Mercedes? What about the trucks? What about the half dozen odd vehicles? Did Kaitlin Armstrong have access to vehicles that weren't the black Jeep? Absolutely. Did she drive vehicles that weren't the black Jeep? Absolutely. But wait, Rick Kofer. Colin said, I saw her get out of the black Jeep. But that's not what he said. The first time he testified in front of you, a few weeks ago, it was a Friday, he said that's what I believe. He was real hesitant. He wasn't rock solid. Then he had a weekend to think. And he came back and he continued to testify in front of you on Monday. And somehow his memory and recollection of every detail in this case had become fuzzier between Friday and Monday over the weekend, except for his opinion about seeing Kaitlin come out of a black Jeep. And when he sat on the witness stand and testified yesterday, somehow all of his recollections had become even fuzzier still, except that he claimed he saw Kaitlin Armstrong come out of a black Jeep. How amazing that the one fact that he seemed to remember with greater clarity over time was the single fact that drew attention away from him and pointed the finger at Kaitlin Armstrong. We're to believe this, that that's what he said, that that's what he actually saw. From Colin. Colin, with his marked lack of interest in Kaitlin's life. Colin, who on May 12th said that Kaitlin had arrived home mere moments after he texted her at 9:21 p.m., 6 minutes after the killing of Mariah Wilson. Colin, who couldn't recall a single detail about Kaitlin's behavior that night, that does not make sense. And Colin may have had other reasons for saying what he did. Remember, Richard Spittler did not believe that Colin was truthful and forthcoming. What about those guns? Colin bought those guns. Colin told her to train with the gun. And she did, once. And she was totally normal. I asked the witness, Jill, did Kaitlin seem all murdery? No. Now, the prosecution led with a video of her at the gun range. Raise your hand in the audience If you've ever been to a gun range or ever held a firearm, did you kill anyone? It's emotional, it's compelling, but that's a rabbit hole. That's a smokescreen. But what's peculiar is that Colin sat up here on the witness stand and said, oh yeah, no, that cable lock for the gun, yeah, that was mine. I have no idea where the second cable lock came from. He had no problem admitting that he owned a cable lock before buying guns. He had no problem admitting that he owned a red cable lock on a Smith & Wesson, which appears unaffiliated with this case. But when confronted with the evidence, I have no idea where this black cable lock on the black Sig Sauer came from. And when we invited him to come and demonstrate to you, to stand here, to show you how a cable lock works, suddenly Colin Strickland, engineering degree, Colin Strickland repairs and sells Spartan motorhome trailers. Colin Strickland, the mechanically sophisticated man, suddenly he has 10 thumbs, and I don't know how this works. Bullshit.
Whoa! Colin sucks. Colin is he's kind of a weirdo. I'm not gonna accuse that guy of murder or anything like that. This woman's on trial, but he just something about his character. I don't know him, so I guess I'm judging a book by its cover, or all that I have to judge. But when we did the last stream, I think it was the opening, or something, and we watched all those clips how he was like stepping on these people's feet, which some people kind of agree. They were like, "Oh, well, if I had a camera in my face, I'd feel the same kind of way." But he just, to me, there's something about him that just kind of comes off as like scummy. Especially, I mean, I'm not going to blame him for Caitlin's death, but he was, not Kaitlin, sorry, Mo's. I mean, some people probably would, but Kaitlin took it upon herself. But, you know, his actions of being dishonest and misleading and lying and like just, like, to me, it's like the least you can do, like, you piece of ish, just like show up on behalf of Will, that's this Mo Wilson that got killed. The least your scummy ass can do is show up and do what you gotta do. But maybe there's pieces that I'm missing. Just seems like a little entitled. You know what I mean? Like, just like, he's alive, she's dead. I'd feel guilty if it was me. Like, I mean, like, damn, like, you know, like, fuck, like I had this woman in my life and I was juggling two women and this psycho ends up killing this other woman and I'm in the middle of this shit. I feel bad. No, he's like a little, just I don't know, like a snob or some shit, like a little, you know what I mean? Like, something about him, just like a prick, you know? But maybe he's pissed off because all his stuff is getting called out. I wish I could have seen the testimony when he was testifying. I wish they were showing that. That would have been so interesting to see, because I wonder if the defense was throwing him under the bus when they were examining him.
He wasn't straight with you. He knew exactly what that cable lock was, and he knows exactly how it works.
Personality disorder. And I guess we all got some type of personality disorder, right? Because every time somebody does some shit, they get or does it really have a personality disorder? I feel like anytime somebody does something, we just pull up the Rolodex of mental health. We just pull some shit up. Oh yeah, it's this and that. If I ever slip up really bad on YouTube, I'm gonna find some shit in that book.
The reason that he was blowing smoke to you is because he did not want you to see that the usage of a cable lock is no easy feat. To rack the slide, to eject the magazine, to then replace it. And so Colin wanted to leave you with the impression, I don't know, the black, I have no idea. The thing from the murder, I don't know. And yet somehow Kaitlin Armstrong, who appears at best, had in her life held a gun one time, somehow knew to use, to remove and then reattach a cable lock. When you heard from Jill from the witness stand, Kaitlin didn't have any experience with that. When they went to the gun range at Colin's direction, there was no cable lock. How did the cable lock get on the gun? Colin says he didn't do it. We know Kaitlin didn't do it because Jill said so. That does not make sense. But Rick, what about the DNA, Rick? Kaitlin cannot be excluded as a potential contributor to a DNA swab from Mariah Wilson's bike. Period. Full stop. A swab from the handlebars and from the seat of that bike. I am no DNA expert. None of y'all are either. We heard from several of them. I don't know. I know that there's transfer DNA. I know that there can be lab contamination. I know that there was a lot of conversation about helmets and who wore what helmet and when they wore it, and if we know who wore the helmet when and this and that, or did Colin put on a black motorcycle jacket as he discussed with Richard Spittler on the way from Kaitlin Cash's apartment to Deep Eddy and Poolberger? Would that black jacket have his DNA? And then if Mariah with Kaitlin and I don't know. You will make of that what you will. But the upshot is this. There are two realities. Schrodinger's cat. Either Kaitlin Armstrong was there, and that's why there's DNA that was found on that bike, or at least that she cannot be excluded, blah, blah, blah. Or
blah. Really?
A person wearing gloves had their hands on a driving steering wheel that had Kaitlin's DNA. Or Mariah Wilson had touched the same bike, or the same helmet, or the black jacket. I don't know. But I do know one thing. Every person that handled this bike handled it in the same way. It was arm day at the gym this morning, and this is still really easy because this is how you pick up this bike. But what the government and the police would like you to believe is that after a brutal slaying, that the way, and see how this tire is arranged, that the way then, Kaitlin Armstrong would have, I guess, wanted to hold the bike like this. That does not make sense. Everyone held it this way. And what's astounding, and this is what you heard from the APD expert, right here, on this portion of the bike frame, this was the area not swabbed for DNA. Why not? It was more appropriate for latent prints. Could you have swabbed for DNA? Absolutely. Why didn't you? It was more appropriate for latent prints. No DNA here, but why would anyone? That doesn't make sense. But what about the missing DNA analysis? No analysis of any DNA from that bike frame. What about the swabs taken from the black Jeep? You heard testimony. DNA swabs were taken from inside the black Jeep. Never tested. Why? Why not? Why leave it to chance? What if it had shown yet another unknown profile? How inconvenient. We do know, as a fact, unknown DNA profile on the seat, unknown DNA profile on these handlebars, unknown DNA profile on the gun. That does not make sense. Austin American Statesman got it right. There's mystery DNA. And there's one more source of DNA that was never tested. The rape kit. The truth of the matter is, Austin Police Department did not want a single piece of evidence in front of you that might point away from Kaitlin Armstrong. They didn't want any evidence that could potentially be inconsistent with their version of the case. And that's why the black swabs from the Jeep, or the DNA swabs from the black Jeep were never tested, and that's why the rape kit was never tested. Rick, what about the police interrogation? We saw her on the video for 11 minutes. She looked cold, she looked bad, she looked like a killer. Imagine that your boyfriend has just been contacted by 2 homicide detectives and told to come down to homicide. And that not but 60, 90 minutes later, additional law enforcement arrives, tactical vests, guns. You're under arrest. What am I under arrest for? Don't know, can't tell you. And then you're taken down to be interrogated, put in a room with Katie Connor, who may not be the worst homicide detective I've ever seen, but is certainly in the running. And told, oh yeah, you're under arrest on this warrant. I couldn't tell you a thing about it. I don't really know. Oh, is someone knocking? No, no one's knocking. Oh no, I think they're knocking. Kidding. Our bad. You're good to go. Hey, your boyfriend and the. What would you do? How would you respond? Don't you think you'd be a little confused? Rick, come on. Costa Rica. What are you, an idiot? Come on. She ran. She ran. Only a guilty person would run. Are you a fool, Rick Kofer? And yet you heard testimony that Kaitlin was told by the Austin Police Department, free to go, ma'am. And when she went to New York, free as a bird, just like any of the 14 of you. And when she booked that ticket for Costa Rica, when she drove to Newark Airport, when she got on a plane bound for San Jose, what did Richard Spittler tell you? That the murder warrant that he had gotten about 10:30 p.m. on May 17th, 2022, had not been entered into TCIC and CIC. At the moment she bought that ticket, at the moment she was on the way to the airport, on the moment she got there, when that plane was taken off, there was no way in the world that Kaitlin Armstrong could have had any awareness or knowledge in any way whatsoever that there was a warrant for her arrest. But we do know that Kaitlin Armstrong routinely traveled internationally. We know that she routinely traveled internationally with little notice. There were multiple witnesses who testified to that. And
So for me, I just want to see, because I feel like this is kind of dragging. I just want to see this guy and see. I don't think it was too long. He's part of the defense too. I guess they take a break. Oh, and he comes back. I don't know that we need to watch the whole thing. It's like dragging. I thought it was maybe going to be like the opening where it was like really hot. Like, hey, like, objection. But
we know that she did it related to her yoga. Was she scared? What do you think? Do you think that she may have been concerned a little bit that her boyfriend had killed someone? Or if not that,
Damn.
that whoever killed Mariah Wilson might want to kill Kaitlin Armstrong next? Or that this might have been connected to the vandalism, the unexplained vandalism outside her house?
why did it herself?
Fear. Fear results in fight or flight. And it was flight. And she certainly was afraid, and that's a reasonable conclusion you can draw. Rick, a couple of weeks ago, she ran away. They took her to a medical appointment, and she ran away. Guilty. Why are we even here?
Rick.
Terrified woman, fearful woman, in jail, abused, injured, someone who doesn't know what they're doing.
There's been no testimony about the things he's talking about now.
I'm moving
He can
on.
twist the evidence any way he wants to, but he can't try to add new evidence.
Let's go. Let's go, Harvey.
That's the case against Kaitlin, right? Isn't that what it boils down to? Did I miss any of the big points? Isn't that where we're at, that circumstantial evidence case? It's a simple case. It's an easy story. It's a beautifully simple story. But it's wrong. And it's based on assumptions of gender and of motive and a bias toward confirmation. And who got to investigate this? Richard Spittler on his first homicide. Why test a rape kit? Why would I need Colin's laptop? I looked through it. I mean, sure, I've got no background in digital forensics, but I looked through it. It seemed fine to me. Let's return it to Colin. One single solitary piece of physical evidence has been removed from this case. Colin Strickland's laptop. Why was Richard Spittler so eager to get Colin's laptop back to him? Why does Colin get treated differently than everyone else? What about Colin's iPad? Why was it never seized? Why was it never extracted? Why didn't Richard Spittler bother to contact or investigate any potential suspect until months and months after he had issued an arrest warrant for Kaitlin Armstrong? He calls Alan Lim, a putative lover of Mariah Wilson. He calls Gunnar Shaw. Surely he did that in the days after the murder. No, he did it in July. And he did it, as he said, because he doesn't know what the defense is going to pull. Guess what? Alan Lim didn't kill Mariah Wilson. Gunnar Shaw didn't kill Mariah Wilson. Did Richard Spittler know that on May 17th? Nope. He didn't even know their names. That was the level of his investigation. The vandalism, the video that you saw yesterday, where Richard Spittler is energetically taking notes, what happened to those notes? Where Colin Strickland is showing the photographs of that vandalism, what happened to those photographs? Richard Spittler thought so little of it that he violated Texas law, that he refused to provide this district attorney's office that report. He refused to conduct a single scintilla of investigation. Why? That didn't really fit the narrative, did it? So why look into it? Why would it matter? Spittler, Detective Connor, the Austin Police Department flubbed this case. But I guarantee you one thing. If you convict Kaitlin Armstrong and she's eventually exonerated, you'll know right now the basis of it. Untested DNA.
That is inappropriate argument. That is inappropriate argument to the jury.
Guys, looking at him too, like eyeing him and shit.
Inappropriate argument. That is inappropriate argument to the jury. To somehow imply that they might make a mistake and come back to harm. That is improper to put that kind of pressure on them.
Any response to that?
I have no further argument.
The objection sustained, the jury will disregard that remark. Counsel.
Mr. Purrier will join you now.
Tag team. Let's see what this guy got to say.
I don't know. A guilty verdict, proof beyond a reasonable doubt, means putting the I don't knows that you have in a box, moving them aside, and pretending they don't exist. The I don't knows that you have are something you need to start thinking about. This is the time to do it. Those I don't knows are important. I don't know why Cash's apartment was unlocked. I don't know that. I don't know why Mo was clutching a black baseball cap 45 minutes after she got home. I don't know that.
So I'm going to skip this. I thought it was a bit more interesting, but it's not. Let's just do the verdict. Oh, crap. Let's do the verdict, I think. And I'll drop the link for anybody that wants to see the whole thing. But it's kind of like, it's just dragging too much. And I just feel like...
Have you reached a verdict in this case?
Oh,
If you would pass that verdict to the panel, please.
I don't want to force and drag us because I'm not really feeling it. I don't think you guys are really feeling that much. We got the gist. And honestly, I think we got the gist from the opening too. Hey.
In cause number D1DC 223011129, the State of Texas versus Kaitlin Armstrong, verdict of the jury. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kaitlin Armstrong, guilty of the offense of murder as alleged in the indictment, signed by the presiding juror on today's date, 2:14 p.m. You may be seated. Does either side desire to have the jury polled at this time?
We do, Your Honor.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I will ask each of you individually, and you can just answer yes or no, whether this verdict that your jury has rendered represent your individual verdict in the case.
Yes.
I think if we're ready to begin, we just need to maneuver a couple of things around. I'm going to go ahead.
So they get dismissed. So yeah, she's found guilty. The plans for the channel. What are the things I'd like to do? I don't know. So P. Diddy, I might cover it. There's like a 30-something page document. I don't know when I would have the time. I don't know if I want to stay up tonight and do it or tomorrow work on it. That P. Diddy thing I heard is kind of interesting, but though it's very graphic, and they actually give a trigger warning in the actual documentation. There's a trigger warning that says this document contains highly graphic information of a sexual nature, including sexual assault. I've never seen that before. Like a trigger warning on it's a lawsuit complaint. They're demanding a trial. I might look at that. There's also this thing of this manhunt for this accused serial rapist that people are telling me is interesting. What else is there's a bunch of stuff. I think those are the two things I'm kind of looking at maybe to do soon. And no chase. We haven't had a chase in a while. Well, we had that chase the other day, but it was like already over kind of thing. But yeah, we really haven't had. I think the sentencing for Tim Faraday, that was interesting. The only thing that I didn't see there was a trial date for the mother. P. Diddy. Yeah, I want to see what's going on with P. Diddy, man. The mogul. The sentencing, they're going to do it in the morning, Dandy. 9 a.m. Central. I don't think they're going to stream it, though. P. Diddy. But anyway, I'm going to head out for now. Thank you guys so much for coming through tonight. And make sure you follow on the second channel. If there's a chase, I'll jump on there. And yeah.